Good morning, afternoon, evening. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm George Moss here at allpointstv.com and also 92.1 on WFOV, the radio station over there that's making a lot of noise and setting the airways on fire with the great programming they do over there. And we are so glad to be partnering with the up-and-coming radio station. We've been here for about 8 years now with this program, and we are What's Going On that comes on normally on Mondays live at 2 o'clock, and then we re-air the program on WFOV at 12 o'clock on Saturdays. We are always very delighted to have you with us because we know that you could be doing a lot of things with your time, and we just are so thankful that you would spend some time with us and the family here at allpointstv.com and also WFOV. Want to welcome you back because we are getting off to a roaring start in 2018. Hope you are enjoying family and friends and being thankful for the new year, and that you have made your resolves, your resolutions, they say, to do better things than what you did in 2017. I didn't make it a resolution myself because I'm sick and tired of saying things I'm not going to follow. I didn't do anything this year. I want to talk about some of the things that's happening in the media, and I want to talk about the Golden Globes program they had, and want to share a few ideas on that. But first of all, I got to talk about my home state winning the championship again, and I think we can all say together now that we have the game behind us. I mean, that quarterback they have, that's the freshman quarterback at those two schools, both Georgia and at the University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide.
Now, those people down there, football is a religion to them, isn't it?
It's a religion down there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of history to it. I think Lou Saban is going to go down, and this is saying a lot, but I think he's going to go down as the greatest college coach in the history of this country. This man, he finds a way to win. And those of you that watched the game, you saw that the starting quarterback wasn't doing very well. They hadn't scored any points in the first half. And he brought this freshman. I don't see how that guy's been sitting on the bench all year, the way he played. They brought this freshman in, and this guy came out, and the team's energy went up. And I thought the game was quite frankly over in the overtime because Georgia made a field goal, and it made it 23-20. And then when Alabama got the ball, they took a loss and went back to about the 42-yard line, and I thought that the game was out of reach for them because their field goal kicker had been inconsistent during the game. But that quarterback, after they scored 3 points in overtime, I'm talking about Georgia scoring 3 points in overtime, Alabama's quarterback, this freshman, after they had been thrown for a loss, they were back there at the 42-yard line, and I'm saying to myself, this game is over. That guy couldn't make a 30-yard field goal. Now they seem like they're out of reach. The field goal was beyond his ability to put that between the upright. But it didn't need him because after they threw the quarterback for a loss, on the very next play, this guy hit the man running. The guy was in stride, hit him in stride, and they scored a touchdown on the very next play. This guy's going to be, Alabama's going to be there for a while, and to unseat them is going to be quite a task going forward because that quarterback is only a freshman. And that's another thing about that game last night. They had two freshmen that were quarterbacking in the second half. Alabama brought his quarterback out, and then the starting quarterback on Georgia's team was already out there. He was a freshman he played during the season, and they were 12-1 going into the championship game. I don't know how you're going to stop this guy. This guy is both a threat to run, and he has a shotgun back there as far as throwing the ball is concerned. But one one thing that happened, I was looking forward to the game. I went out there and went to one of the pizza places to get a pizza before the game started, and I was asking this one guy that was at the counter if he was, because they were all in there. When you're ordering pizza, that around game time is probably because they're going to be watching the game. So I asked this one guy, I said, who you pulling for in the game? And the guy said, what game? So I knew. So I said to him, I said, no, you're not going to be watching the game. And I asked him where was he from. I could tell he wasn't from the United States by his accent. And he told me he was from Jordan. And we had a very nice chat. And he told me he's going to be here. I asked him how long does he plan to be here for the long run, or is he here for a limited period of time? He told me he's going to be here for 3 years. And we had a nice conversation. He said, I don't understand football. And we got to talking, and I was telling him that when I was in Africa in 2010, and they had the football that the world considers to be football, which is soccer. We call it soccer here. They call it football in other parts of the world. The biggest sport in the universe. And I was talking about soccer, and we had a nice conversation about that. I was telling him that I was in Africa when they had the World Cup was played in South Africa that year, and I was in Ghana, and they were rubbing it in because they had this team called the All Stars, the Black Stars they call them, from Ghana, and they were chiding me because Ghana had done a what for on our team. And so I remember that from 2010. I was just sharing it with him, and we had a nice chat. Nice person. And I kept thinking to myself that, it's good to have. I told him, I said, it's good to have you here, but that does not mean that I've changed my mind about the immigration policy of this country. We still need to, in fact, get away from this lottery stuff and bring more people like this guy. This was a very nice young man, and you don't do that through the lottery. You do it by making sure that when persons come in to your country, they're coming in order to make a contribution once they're here, and that they're not posing any kind of threat once they arrive on these shores. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I was just listening to a program by Rush coming to the studio, and they're talking about Donald Trump tying in the wall to DACA, and they're talking about the dreamers. These not dreamers. These people that broke into this country, or their parents did. And they're saying, well, they're here, they're dreaming. They can dream in Mexico. You can dream in other parts of the world. If you come into this country here, you need to come in here legally. And this idea of open borders and you don't need the wall. But he was just, he said he's going to be here for 3 years. So they're here on some kind of student visa or some kind of work visa. And he said that it's a 3-year, stint that he'll be putting into the country during his tenure. But I said to myself while I was talking to him, I was enjoying him so much and enjoying the conversation that we had. I just said, wow, if we could just, if you're going to have immigration, that's the way to do it. He's here on some documentation, and obviously he's here to do something that would benefit him, and when he goes back, benefit Jordan. And that's the way it should be. A legal process in place, and people come here because they respect the laws of the country. And if they come here and they're able to become citizens of the country and they start dreaming while they're here, that's also very good. But don't stop telling me about people breaking into the country and they're in here dreaming. They're in here as illegal aliens. And we have got to stop lying about what immigration is really about. Immigration is you allow people to come into your country because you believe that it benefits the country. You don't bring people into your country because it benefits them. It has to be some benefit the country gets. Otherwise, the country is being sacrificed for the benefit of the individuals who are not even citizens of this country. And that's just the way it is. I don't make an apology about having said that, although I know it's not politically correct because we are, political correctness. We're a politically correct country. But the game last night was very exciting, and I was there to the end, and I'm from Alabama, so that was another plus. And we had some people over, and we just really enjoyed the outcome. The fact that that game was decided in overtime showed how evenly matched the number one. Well, that was there was the number 3 and number 4 teams that were playing last night. So it was really exciting to watch the game. Speaking of entertainment, and that's what football is. It's entertainment. Let's not get carried away that when football players out there making a witness and taking a knee and all of that they're doing anything that is really significant politically, because they wouldn't be doing any of that if there was some type of consequence to it. It's easy to protest when you are not facing any retribution for it, but they would not be on their knees. And like Iran, they're certainly not going to be on their knees. They're playing the flag in North Korea. They're not going to do it. And they didn't even do that in England. When they had that game over there in England, you saw how they were down there on their knees. This is really something, isn't it? Down on their knees in England when they're playing their own anthem, and then stood up when they played the anthem for England. They stood up. That is really something that you could be on foreign soil and represent your country that way. But there are no consequences for it, so they can do that here. They wouldn't do it in Iran, and they wouldn't do it in North Korea, and they wouldn't do it in any country in Africa. You're just not going to do it, because there will be a strong reaction to it, and probably incarceration. In many of the countries I've been in, it would not be tolerated. But here, nothing is there's no wager against liberty in this country because of the rights you have and so on and so forth, and they're out there protesting as if there are no rights that people have in this country, when this is the freest country on the globe. And it's the freest country in the globe for whites, and also for blacks, and blacks will not have any greater freedom anywhere on the globe than they have here.
Well, now you've been to how many African nations? Because you have
17 countries.
Because you got to keep on reminding yourself you have a different audience than you had previous. So you've been to how many? You said again?
17 countries altogether. And I have not been in one country yet where I've seen blacks treated better than they're treated in the United States.
No, most of them, most of the countries are in Africa, and there's 54 countries?
54 countries.
Right, so, and it's awfully hard to keep track because they do split Earth and go rejoin, and so
yes,
that just shows instability, in my opinion. But it's just everybody, they go on about the police violence here against blacks, and that's been argued over and over again, especially with that Black Lives Matter and stuff. But ultimately, you look down on it, other countries in Africa, run by blacks in Africa, they have much more of a high rate where the government groups or government troops or whatever are killing their populace than they do here.
You'd be surprised of how much repression there is in Africa, and I've seen it up close and personal. I was at the airport, give an example. I was at one of the airports in Africa, and everything is about you getting hit on as a tourist, because they're poor countries and they know you have money. If you're a tourist, you brought money with you, and so there are all these little traps. If you don't understand how to get out of certain situations, you can really be trapped there. And I was at the airport getting ready to depart from this country, and I had taken some students over. There were about 13 students I had taken over there to this African country. And I was going to lead them to the checkout where you have to have your bags checked, and they're doing everything, by hand. They didn't have the machines to run your baggage through some kind of machinery where they could do the x-ray of what you have in your bag. So all the bags got to be open. So they said to me, Professor Moss, the students that you have, we don't think they have anything that we have to check. But we'll just check your bags and we'll let them go, and we want to check them because we think that they probably don't have anything that would be of any problem in the getting on the airplane. But it's going to cost you a little something. So the way they got into my bag, they said, in searching my bag, they saw some things I had in there that any tourist would want to get something out of the country and bring it back as an artifact. So I have these artifacts in my bag, maybe 2 or 3 things I had bought from some of the bazaars and some of the places where they sell these things that replicate things that the country represents. And they have these statues and things like that. I brought some real small statues, put them in my bag. So the guy said, "Oh, Professor Moss, did you check with the museum to find out if you could take this out of the country?" Now, that's a scam that this guy's running, and I know I'm being scammed. So I told him that I hadn't. But what it really meant was you fold the money up and you put it underneath the kind of the table, so to speak, and you hand it to this guy, and he lets you go through. And that's the kind of thing that you'll see in these third world countries. And they didn't let me go through any better than they did the others just because I was black. In fact, you go over there and pull that black stuff over in Africa, everybody over there is black, so there's no big deal.
They'd probably be rolling in the aisles if you did bring that up. It's like, yeah, are you kidding?
They don't. Even the word Afro-American, they don't buy that over there.
That over, I was U of M. I was black students at U of M were bringing up that they're African American, and there were exchange students there, who are from African nations, and they're just cracking up. It's like, what part of you ever grew up in Africa has been in Africa? And they were just mocking them, and it was pretty funny actually. But I can see where people,
they don't accept this African American because you don't have any link to a culture in Africa, and to claim otherwise. It really means that you are delusional.
Well, see, my mom's family was Hungarian, and then years ago we finally met up with one of the cousins from Hungary, and I was proud to be Hungarian. I still am, have an ancestry that is Hungarian. But it's like when we were sitting there talking to them, we couldn't speak the language because my mom could speak it, but we kids couldn't, and because we didn't grow up around it. And it started me thinking, it's like, well, why am I so proud about this? It's like it's cool to have that ancestry. You can point to your origins, but that's me being a Hungarian American. That hyphenation stuff is going to kill us.
Well, Nawal El-Saadawi, John, has she did a seminar at U of M some years ago, and one of the things that I got from her conversations with us in that seminar was she's named after her grandmother, or maybe her great-grandmother. And the point she made was one I thought was quite profound. She said that she didn't know her grandmother or great-grandmother, and it would have been better to name her of someone that she'd have some memory of, because in not knowing that person, just one generation removed from her, she didn't have any connection. And here are people here, I thought as I was being told that, here are people here who are trying to claim a connection that goes back 300 years, and it's a certain amount of delusion that people are into in this country. This idea of African American, I can tell you right now, I have been in 17 countries and I have not found it accepted anywhere, because they look at the place of origin, and the place of origin of every black person in this country is not born in Africa, and that includes Obama, because Obama claimed he was born in Hawaii, so he wasn't born in Africa, although his father was from Kenya. But Obama, to run for president, had to have been born in America. If he had been born in Africa, John had been born in Kenya, would not have been eligible.
Now, I've seen signs on Facebook. I don't know if they're true or not, so let me preface it that way. But it said there's supposed to be a sign from Kenya, and it named the city and the town of Kenya. And it says birthplace of Barack Obama.
Right.
So and they allegedly had he had a Kenyan birth certificate.
Right.
Well, somebody said, if he's born here, then why he's got? Well, it's because they're proud that they issued one. I went, they don't issue two documents. They don't. But back then, that was still controlled by the British, wasn't it? But the time of his birth,
it was controlled by. That's why Obama sent back the bus. Winston Spencer Churchill. John, I just came back from the movie today. You got to go see that film called Darkest Hour, Churchill. That's why Obama sent that bus back of Churchill, because look at Obama. Obama didn't send back a bust of George Wallace because he was not affiliated with that part of history. That's the history of blacks in this country. Obama was dealing with the history of Kenya, and that's why Churchill was offensive to him.
You see, I mean, I have a lot, because I had friends when I was growing up. My parents had friends who were World War II veterans, and they had served in the European theater. You know, you had the European theater, Pacific theater, and they had real issues with the way they thought that Churchill just looked at the United States as a big pool of bodies and materials. And they had this kind of, and he was an arrogant, he still looked at us as the colonies. That's what their view was, even though his mom was an American. But there's good things. He was kind of a tumultuous leader in his own right. He had kind of he would go flip back and forth. He was kind of a political opportunist. He didn't really have a core. He was sometimes conservative, sometimes he agreed with the more on the left, those on the left politically. But he did have some remarkable traits, and it's begrudging, I have to admit that. I have serious love-hate relationship with Churchill, my opinion, because he is not a person that we as Americans, he didn't really have to respect, in my opinion, Americans. He really didn't. You know,
you'll like this film. One thing that film showed, which we could use here as a jump-off point, what we are facing with North Korea. Churchill, who had come in after he got tired of Chamberlain's nonsense, you know, Naval Chamberlain had gone to Munich in 1938 and came back with an accord that he thought was greater than what was written on that paper. Hitler's word wasn't worth 2 cents. But he came back waving this paper once he got off the plane in London, and waving it and saying, "I think it's peace in our time," and didn't know that once he left the room in Munich, that Adolf Hitler had called him a weasel, and had an indication of his intestinal fortitude, and knew that this man was not going to stand up. And therefore, after the Munich Accord in 1938, on September the 1st, 1939, there's the Hitler tanks rolling into Poland. And it's only then that the Allied powers realized they had to fight, because once you go into Poland, we know what Hitler has in mind there, and that is to take over the breadbasket of Europe. And if you have the breadbasket of Europe, you can't fight, because you cannot fight a war on an empty stomach. And when they went in there, then they knew what Hitler had in mind, and that was to, in fact, take over Europe. And at that point, then the declaration of war had to therein be enjoined. But one of the things in that film that was really interesting is that Hitler was sending out these feelers that he wanted to have England to negotiate through using Mussolini, his surrogate, to bring about a settlement, because they kind of knew what they had in Winston Churchill. And Churchill was telling those people like Chamberlain and some of the others, Halifax and those persons, that how many times do you have to learn that you cannot reason with a lion when your head is in his mouth. And that was a very strong part of that film, because Chamberlain, even though he stepped down, they were still in the background trying to bring about some settlement on the terms of the Germans to satisfy this war, and they were still back there as these quislings and these appeasers. And it showed another scene where Churchill was riding on the streetcar, and he was kind of testing the people about their will to fight. And he found out from them that they were more resolute than they were in the parliament. And they were saying that they were all saying to a question he was asking about, how do you feel about the war? What is your feeling about the morale? How do the people feel about it? And they were saying never, in terms of giving up, never. And that's what really strengthened Churchill. The political leadership, which I thought this was interesting, the political leadership was talking about trying to find some way to surrender on terms that would not be too harsh against them and so on. But the people were the ones that were resolute, not the politicians. And by going out there listening to them, that's why Churchill was talking about we'll fight on the beaches and so on and so forth. And they had strengthened his backbone. And I give him credit for that. I mean, he stood up when nobody else in the parliament wanted to stand up. But at the end of the film, they were all chanting, and the film closes on that note. But I think the people were the ones that actually gave Churchill the backbone. But I'm not mad at him. And if I had been president, I would not have been sending a bus back of this monumental figure in the 20th century. One of the pivotal figures in the last century was Churchill. And you cannot. Okay, we are going to take a break now. John came right on time, and we will have a break taken at this point by those at 92.1. We'll see you in 4 minutes again. Hope you'll come back, and we're looking forward to your return to the program at that time. We're going to continue here at allpointstv.com, and this show must go on, and nothing stops the show. We're here, by the way, on Tuesday rather than Monday because certain things that we had to do on yesterday, but we're taping one day after we normally would tape the program. That's why I'm able to report on the football game that occurred last night. I want to talk also, now that we are kind of into this, the media, I want to say a word too about the Golden Globes, the Golden Globe Awards, and that program. Because it reminds me of the same thing that we have going on with these football players. You know, it's something that's the grandstand when there's no price to pay for it. And everybody is out here with all these accolades and people saying Oprah should be a candidate in 2020. I would like to see a run in 2020. To be honest with you, not that I wouldn't vote for, but I like to see a run in the sense that we need to have non-career politicians running for the highest office in this country. And if Donald Trump has led the path, has opened the pathway to non-politicians being in the presidential office, that's a good thing, because the career politicians have not done it. And it's time for us to understand that they're not any better qualified to run this country than anyone else. When I say anyone, I don't mean that everybody in the country is qualified. I'm just simply saying that they're not specially qualified because they've held these offices, because there's no office you can hold that encompasses as many responsibilities as the President of the United States. And all the ones that have gone in there have pretty much said that nothing they went through prior to arriving there really trained them to do that job, because you got pressures from everywhere. And I know I was in the classroom for a lot of years, and I can tell you this, that when I went down there to the principal of the school, there's nothing prepared me to do that job, because then you're responsible for the whole school, and there were pressures from everywhere. All these countervailing forces arrayed down in your office, external to the school, internal to the school, other classrooms, all kinds of problems. There's no preparation for that, even though you might have been in the classroom, as I was, more than 3 decades. But you have to go down there and do the job in order to be able to ferret out how you're going to handle this crisis. And many times you have multiple crises happening at the same time. And that's a handful, and it's an ongoing, everyday, problem. And what I found out, you don't even have time for lunch. You can forget that idea that you're taking a lunch break, because there are no breaks. You're working from the time you get there to the time you leave. So I would like to see Oprah run. I wouldn't vote for Oprah, but I just want to see non-career politicians going into the political process, because we as citizens have the right to run for political office in this country. And that was the intention of the framers. None of them had been president prior to George Washington. So we're talking about glad you're coming back from your 4-minute break, those who are at 92.1. Always glad to have WFOV with us, because they are the partners here that we look forward to our continued affiliation with that station. And I said at the beginning of this program, they're an up-and-coming radio station. And I always want to say that the person behind that is Paul Herring, who is one of the visionaries here in the city. And this city should be very glad to have a person of that with that kind of a vision to even create a radio station and be doing what he's doing.
I'll put a plug in for your show too. So people, if you're listening and you know that you have a family member or friend who might be interested in the content of what Mr. Moss is discussing, and then they don't have internet access, tell them they can listen to the show on WFOV 92.1 on Saturdays from 12 to 1 o'clock. And he's there. He's been there for like 2 or 3 months now, right?
About 2 or 3 months, yeah. And we're going to be here for the long run. It's a partnership made in heaven for us, because we were looking for some partners, but we weren't looking for just anybody. We wanted to have a station that would be in line with our virtues and the things we're trying to accomplish here at allpointstv.com. And when we found a sister station that was doing some of the work we're trying to do, we were very glad to make this accommodation, and we're very happy for this partnership that we have. I was saying here, in the absence of 92.1, that I would love to see more non-career politicians run for political office. We're all citizens of this country, and we have as much right to run for political office as politicians do. And this idea, if you're a senator or if you're a governor, you have some hold on that process running for the presidency. That's been broken, and some people are saying it's been broken forever now that we got Donald Trump in there. They're saying that he's set a new genre for the presidential office, and if that be the case, then let's have more of that.
Do you remember back when Ronald Reagan ran for office, presidency, yeah, back in, early 80s, because that's when he got in. 1980. They claim some of the people were saying he was just an actor. Well, then you got people like Al Franken and all these other people, yeah, who are actors and entertainers. Now by left standards, are experts in all fields, but they're denigrating Ronald Reagan. And admittedly, Ronald Reagan wasn't the caliber of an actor that you see winning these awards now, but rightly so. A lot of them are tremendous actors. They really are. And I can't ever say that I don't think Reagan was one of those. I mean, but they still denigrate him because he was an actor, but it's okay for all these other people to be actors and entertainers and musicians, and they're supposed to speak authoritatively on all these other issues. I think it's such a bizarro world where they switch back and forth on it. It's like, no, it's not our particular person that we like. So why don't you say that? You don't like this individual. But you're dismissing because of his occupation. That's kind of stupid, because you're now backing people of the same occupation.
This is the hypocrisy pretty much of the left. Look at how they treated Donald Trump when he came down on the, June the 16th. In 2015, came down the escalator of the Trump Tower and made his announcements running for the office. There was so much vitriol and so much venom that was aimed at his candidacy. There were people saying the man is out of his mind for running. And then when he was running, they were saying he didn't really want to win the presidency. It was all a publicity stunt, that he was a narcissist and was in love with himself and wasn't serious, and all of that. And then look at Oprah. She makes a speech at the Golden Globes, and now I keep saying Globes, thinking about boxing. The Golden Globe.
There's kind of a similarity, though. It's kind of a similarity.
The B rather than the V. But they were saying she should be a contender in 2020 just because of the speech she made at this awards program. And I have to tell you something. That it doesn't take any courage to do what Oprah did. It's one thing to get up there and say something about women being harassed, sexual harassment, when that is the going rate. But you think this sexual harassment just started recently with them outing Weinstein? Go back and look at how in past awards, Oscar awards, where Meryl Streep and all these others were up there one after the other, thanking Weinstein for his tremendous filmmaking, producing great films. They would compliment this man left and right. Everybody that was getting up there was saying this guy's name.
Well, you know,
and they knew what he was doing.
See, I know you're too polite to say what this actually is. It's called, in the parlances of the real world, and the impolite world and more basic world, it's called sucking up. And that's all they're doing. Yeah. They're sucking up. Okay,
because that's the way it operated. And go back and listen to what Marilyn Monroe said once she had made that film called "Some Like It Hot," I think it was called. And she said, having made that film that made her a star, she said, now I won't have to ever blah, 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 do these things she had to do to get these roles. But the casting couch is how Hollywood operated. And all of the actors knew that. You look at how many of those persons had to go through that casting couch to become stars. That wasn't anything new. But now that it's outed and it's safe to come out there and make these comments, Oprah comes out there and says their time is up.
Well, Oliver Stone years ago, I remember, this is in the 90s, like 20-some years ago, I remember reading, it was a movie he just made, it was really popular, and he actually said the women that weren't like the well-known members of the cast actually had to basically take off their top and parade them around front of them to get the job. And this is like common, this is stated matter-of-factly in the press. No sense of outrage or indignation or anything. So, I mean, this is Oliver Stone, I think it was really, came out with the movie like, what was the movie, The Doors or something like that, or the JFK. He was like 90s. He had like a series of them. I think they're all. I hope I just cited the right movies, but yeah, I mean they were saying this, and it was like a joke that he actually done this, and now but now he's on that list, on the list of predators, But they didn't say anything back in the 90s about it.
These people are part of herds. As long as it was not mainstream to come out and say that this is not to be tolerated, nobody was out there saying it. Now that they are saying it as a herd, these people are herd. They do things based upon it being group, minded. And to stand out from the crowd, they're not willing to do that. And I'm not impressed with what Oprah did when she got up there and said that their time is over. Anybody's applauding, giving her a standing ovation. That didn't take any courage. The courage would have been to have done that when it was a problem and no one was standing up for it.
Well, as I said, even if people were finding it grossly unpopular what she said, totally disagree with it, what harm is she going to suffer? She's worth more, she's got more money than, the deity, God. Let's face it. So how is she going to be harmed by it? I mean, she might take a slight hit. Somebody might not buy her books or buy the books that she recommends, or I guess now she's actually toting this diet plan. She's like behind this, like with the new Weight Watchers. She's been on a lot of those. So what? Even if people said, I'm not going to buy these products, how was she harmed? Her money's making money just sitting in a bank. Okay, so that's not a gutsy approach what she did. No,
it wasn't gutsy at all. And those football players, it's the same thing. I tell you what, those football players not gonna do. They're not going to go down on one knee and protest black people killing black people. That's a problem in the black community. It probably is the most horrific problem that black people are facing in this country. You see them kneeling because of Chicago, Chirac, as they call it in Spike Lee's film. That takes courage to stand out and say that. It doesn't take any courage for LeBron James. LeBron knows how blacks feel about Donald Trump. Not that they know. Not that the feeling they have against Donald Trump is that Donald Trump is not a Democrat, and 90% of black people vote Democrat. And so this man is supposed to be a racist and doesn't like blacks. Yet you look at the unemployment rate among blacks right now. The unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been among blacks in this country. And it will not matter. Black people are not going to give up their affiliation with the Democratic Party, no matter what this president does. So it didn't take any courage for LeBron to come out, and LeBron James come out and do what he did. Had the nerve to say that those persons that support Trump are not very educated. The man was breaking every verb in town. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, and I'm proud that I didn't vote for her.
By the way, I just want to make a point. I'm not saying about when I made my reference about she has more money than God. God doesn't need money, okay? But I mean, so I believe in the God, I believe in deity. But let's face it, Oprah and all these people have more money than is really needed by anybody. Yet, when there's a applaud, it's like a heroic thing because they said something that might be relatively unpopular with a segment of the population. I don't think it's gutsy. I don't think it's gutsy.
It doesn't take any courage to be part of a herd. I'm saying things on the air that are very unpalatable, even to some of my friends. I say it because I know it to be true. I don't care what the herd has to say about it.
Now, here's the thing: is people don't know. Your listeners might not know. You were basically banned from Facebook, and I have seen people post pornographic videos on Facebook and not get bounced out of there. And you never. I've read through your postings. You don't even swear.
No.
And they banned you
because I'm a black man carrying a point of view that is not endorsed by most blacks. But if I'm waiting for black people to endorse the views that I have, they have to read what I read and know what I know.
Would you ever heard the story
and
about Allen Ginsberg? He was a poet. He wrote this book called Howl, full of poetry that had considered at that point in time obscene material in it. And because of the controversy surrounding that book, it sold like 100 times more than the average volume of poetry ever would. So I mean, think about it. If people get you in the national press, we could actually make your following humongous just because they want to see what this oddball's saying. And I'm sorry, I'm not calling you. You're an oddball in the face of this country's current political climate.
And going to continue to be that. I have never been a part of a herd, and those that are part of the herd, I consider all of those persons to be parrots, and I'm never going to be that person. And this idea of sticking your finger up in the air and trying to find out where the wind is blowing, and then you're going to go in that direction, that's not me, and it's not going to ever be me. And all the critics that you get, I had a lot of critics on Facebook. And the reason why they took me off there, quite frankly, John, was that they kept reading my posts, and I wasn't conventional in terms of carrying all of this water for the Democrats. And how many blacks do you have not doing that? And here's a person that's not carrying that water and understand who the Democrats are and who they were in history, who they are right now.
No, you're always kind of
part of the Klan.
But see, I knew people that knew you teaching when you're still teaching in the high school locally here. Mm-hmm. And so they said to me when they heard what you're doing now and they've seen what you're doing now, one of them said, well, he's changed his course. I'm like, I asked you about that. And basically, I think you're going to have some evolution. I mean, and let's face it, everybody belongs to a group that have problems that the rest of us who don't belong to that group might be unaware of. So, I mean, you might have spoke out at a time when you saw the injustices for the black community then, but now the times has simply changed. And the other people still cling to the past. I mean, they talk about Barack Obama said about the average voter out there, they cling to their guns and to their religion. They're also hanging on to their own debris, so, historical debris.
Here's what they miss. What I'm for is the truth. And I don't care who is saying it. And I don't care who is opposed to it. And that's what I was for in that time period. That's what I'm for now. And anyone that cannot understand that, they're too stupid to have a conversation with.
Well, you're the founder of the Black Arts Festival. You'll bring that about, right?
John, I don't have to dwell. I don't try to explain anything to those who are the naysayers. I'm not trying to please anybody. I'm just like Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson had a book called Here I Stand. Here I stand. I'm not a willow tree, and I stand where I stand. And I stand here against all the blowback and all of the things that they do. What Facebook didn't face me. I did. When Facebook put me off of the network, and they claimed that there was something unusual on my wall. What was unusual? Yeah, it was something unusual. The truth. And they claimed that they thought I had been hacked. But when I sent and asked me to send a picture, I sent them one picture after the other, and they still haven't reinstated me. But what I did, given what I found out, was I got more time to read now, more time to study, And that's a good thing. So they did me a favor. I don't miss Facebook.
And now, people, if you're listening, now you're looking at the man banned by Facebook.
Yeah.
And let's face it, they got pornographers out there posting stuff, and they don't ban them.
They're a liberal network, and they want liberal speech. They don't want what I'm talking about. I am not a liberal, and I'm proud of that fact. And I would like to ask some of the persons that I meet in the stores and things like that, what is it that black people are doing as a group that you think that they need to be doing more of? What is it that we're doing politically that you think that we need to be doing more of? What is that we're doing that if we did more of it, we solve our problems? That's the conversation I want to have in terms of where are we now, and what are we doing right now that we'll be in a better place, in a different place in the future than what we are in the present. What is that thing that we're doing that we need to do more of? Continue to vote 90% for one party to the exclusion of the other party? That's going to get it done? I don't think so. And I would also say that you won't have me identifying with either party to the point where I'm saying the party is the solution, because I think both parties are a part of the problem in this country. And I'm neither Democrat or Republican. I disagree with Malcolm, though. Malcolm X said, I'm not Democrat, Republican, nor an American, and got sense enough to know it. He was an American. But this idea that you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't know what that means. Based upon the party affiliation, because there are no Democrats in the Democratic Party and there are no Republicans in the Republican Party. And I keep saying that because it continues to be true. There are no Democrats in the Democratic Party. That word means something. There are no Republicans in the Republican Party.
The terms left and right, I mean, I don't even know where, I mean, I said this 20-some years ago. I mean, where are they relevant nowadays? I mean, where did they come from? They're not even, they're a transfer over from European political scene. I mean, I don't know if there actually had any comparison between, any similarities between the parties here in this country. I mean, yet we still use those terms, unthinkingly, really.
Well, no problems. You can't. What people do not get is that you can't solve any problems through the political process. There are no problems that have a political solution. And if there are some problems that have a political solution, then that means you can pass a law for the problem to go away. Okay, we got a problem right now with a $20 trillion debt. Can you pass a law against that? Or you had a tax abatement rather than a tax reduction. You had a tax abatement where the abatement was to take the taxes off the present population and put it into the future where you can't see it, and people think that there was a tax break. Can you vote for the government to stop taking your money from you? Is that going to be on the ballot? Do you have the right on the 15th not to send your taxes in? Is that going to be on the ballot? That you can reduce the government's hands in your pocket. And they got people believing that people not paying their fair share. This is brainwashing, not paying your fair share of taxes. What is a robber doing telling you that you're not paying, that you're not giving the robber a fair share of what you earn? We're in a matrix in this country, and we don't recognize how brainwashed the population in this country is. But that's the way it is in all the countries. Because government must, in fact, convince people that they are duty-bound to support these persons who call themselves, in this country, Democrats and Republicans. I'll tell you what I call them. I call them thugs.
I was just thinking, as you're saying,
thugs running this country.
A lot of us are brain damaged, maybe, but also we are kind of brainwashed, and I was going to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer this. Maybe think about it. Maybe
I'll answer because nobody tells me what to think.
Okay, but now I was going to say, what would you say? Maybe a list of criteria what people should be asking themselves when they look at a political scene, when they look at a political situation. Maybe it's something you want to think about. Maybe you want to give a response quickly. I don't know, but I think that's a good question because we all are brainwashed to some degree. We have prejudices we assume and work into our whole mindset, and we don't examine them. We never do.
The first thing that, when I was in Washington, the first thing that this one guy told the students, I took some students to Washington on close-up, and the thing he said to those students is when you finally become of age and vote, the first thing you ought to do is vote against the incumbent. Now, that doesn't have a party affiliation, because there are incumbents that are Democrats and there are incumbents that are Republicans. But the point he was making is that when you are an incumbent over and over and over again, and you've been in there 20 and 30 years, you're drunk with power. The intention of the framers was to go in and do some work to make the country better, to make a contribution, and then go home back to your job. Anybody that's up there in Washington for 20 and 30 years, you got to turn these persons out. Because wielding power for a period of time, you are not going to be in Congress no 20 and 30 years with persons paying your way, paying for your campaign, and you don't owe them something once you are elected. The mere fact that they're in there 20 years show they're corrupt. There's not one person in Washington, not one, you name him for me, who's been in government for 10, 12, 15, and 20 years that's not corrupt. And it's not just my point of view, it's also the point of view of those who studied this. Look at De Lorenzo's book. Thomas De Lorenzo has a book out called Organized Crime. And at the bottom of the book, the subtitle is, it's called Organized Crime, and then it's The Unvarnished Truth About Government. Or go look at Peter Schweiker's books, one of which is called The Architects of Ruin. Politicians don't fix any problem, they create problems. And that's why the framers wanted to, in fact, restrain what they could do, because they are, by very nature of the jobs that they have, they are parasites on the public. You don't owe them any money. They take it by gun. They come, you pay because, they say, why do you pay taxes? It's the same thing that Ayn Rand said. I pay taxes because if I don't pay, they put me in jail. But in terms of convincing me that I'm not paying my fair share, there's no fair share. I want somebody to define what that means.
That's exactly. I always ask these social justice warrior types, so what is the fair, well, they should be doing this. Well, why? They never can give an answer of why or how much. I mean, if you want to do public policy, those are two questions you should have to address.
These are people that are brainwashed in this country, and all governments do it. I'm not saying this is unique to the United States. All governments do that in order to control their population, because if you don't control them, what you have is what you have over in Iraq right now. People are out in the streets, because what they're doing over there is finally waking up to who those persons are that are wearing those masks. And all politicians, I don't care where they are, all politicians on the globe are masked.
Yeah, they have to
be masked.
You bring this up, and I just saw a little video that somebody posted on the on the libertarian site about taxation. It was an exchange between two different people in Germany. But I know if I trust the subtitles, because my German's really bad, I actually can't say more than a few words in it. But anyway, this woman was saying, "Well, you don't like taxation." She was saying to this guy who's opposing taxation, "Oh, well, we do this, and I assume your kids go to school and you live in public housing." And he said, "You took my house away from me, and you made me live in public housing. You know, you take my kids and you force me to buy." So why am I supposed to be happy about having to pay taxes to do this to me? This is this is destroying my own sovereignty, basically. So in that exchange, it was like 4 minutes long. I'll see if I can send it to you through email.
I want to definitely see it. I'll tell you this about taxation. We fought 2 wars in this country over taxation. We all know about the one that was fought in 1776, and we all talk about that one in all the classrooms. But we want to make this other war that was fought over taxation. This other big war we fought over taxation, we want to make that war over slavery. That was over taxation too. The one was fought during the time of Abraham Lincoln.
That makes it sound more noble, though. You know, we're fighting for humans to be free. Well, there's also, but yet you're still okay with a portion of the population be taxed almost to their death. So I guess it's not about humans.
This war was, and you know, when I go into these places and say that this war was over taxation, a lot of persons, you know, start becoming almost hysterical, because they want to maintain the image of Lincoln as a great emancipator, but that doesn't hold water when you know the facts of this case. And the reason why the South was not going to be let out of here, and why they were objecting to being a part of this network of states, is because of the way in which the tariff policies were playing out in this country. And they had threatened a number of times to leave out of the country because of the tariff disabilities that were placed upon the South, where the South was paying for the prosperity of the North. And that's why they stood up with their guns, by the way. But if you start teaching that history, then you wake people up to some other things about taxation. Nobody likes paying taxes, and I'm not saying here that people should resist paying taxes. I'm just telling you why taxes are paid. You pay taxes because if you don't pay it, you go to jail. And therefore, taxation is theft and is backed up by the guns of the government. That's just the way it is. And it's not that way just here. It's there this way everywhere where the government does that. Government is one of the bugaboos on the planet. But the problem is, what do you do in the absence of government? And we have not arrived at an answer there. And once we find an answer to that, maybe people become more ethical and they are self-sovereign in their governance of themselves and controlling themselves in an ethical way. And therefore, you can eliminate and reduce government. Then maybe that can happen. But we're not there yet. But this idea that you owe something, you don't owe anything if you've not bought anything, and they can't. And then they have the government to make people buy a product, as they did with this Joker Roberts, where they make you buy a product and tell you that you are obligated through the Constitution to engage in commerce against your will, and that's constitutional. That's just government saying that. That's not what the Constitution says. Article 1, Section 8. You can't. That's not constitutional. That was a corrupt Supreme Court making the decision. They can make you engage in commerce. So anyway, we're going to begin to become more open and more aware as we go into 2018. Keep your eyes open. Everything that's happening needs to be examined, and there's no topic off limits. And we need to start having a conversation in this country on what we're going to leave to our children, because we're losing it. Okay, I got to get out of here, and we will in fact continue these conversations on allpointstv.com and also WFOV. Glad to have you with us every week. See you again 12 o'clock on Saturday. Till that time, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.